because I was on the path and having this awareness of I was choosing a man like my dad in many respects. And so it was this frustration, and why didn't you protect me, and da 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 da. And actually the MDMA therapy was like really amazing. It just did it within it.
Yeah. It just cuts through.
Yeah, the plant medicines are amazing. Well, it's not plant, but you know, I will train with MDMA at some point, MDMA therapy.
I know a few couples who have, in lockdown, I think they're the only couple that I know where their relationship got better because they added that to their relationship.
Yeah.
And the guy just could communicate. And so she felt heard. She knew what he was, that certain things weren't her fault anymore, and like all of it just like fixed their relationship. Okay, so how do I get over heartbreak of the loss of my mother? It'll be 3 years of her passing in May, and my dad is planning on getting married next year, and I still haven't fully grieved my mum, the loss of my mum. That's happy.
Yeah. So there's a few ways to work with that. You know, it's like, have you, like, because remember, there would have been a grieving period. I literally did a post on this yesterday. Like, there would have been, like, have you given yourself time and space to collapse? Number one, I literally spoke to a client that's still grieving the loss of her mum and her grandma and her granddad. And even in her story, it's like, it's not just the loss of her mum, it's all the untold stories behind that. Right? So it's, have you given yourself the time to grieve, like to collapse and grieve and cry and wail and scream and be angry and be mad and be happy and be joyful at all the times gone? Have you, you know, cleansed the body of the emotions, like the detoxing? Have you been held? You know, so there would have been rites of passages. So I would do like a rites of passage of the death, the transitional death, but also honoring the dead. Like when we know there's rituals to support the crossing over. So when someone dies and you're going through that heartbreak, the more we cling on to that person in the emotional, why did you go? Why did you have to leave me? I miss you. Oh my God, my heart, me. They get stuck in the realms. They can't cross over. It's really, really bad actually, because they're not able to transition into their next part of their life, their existence. And so one way to honor the dead and to deal with your heart, your grief, is to light a white candle, so a magic candle. So you need a proper magic candle, and a magic candle doesn't have the silver, so that's why you get the silver bit at the bottom of candles, because it stops the magic. So you need a proper, you need a proper magic candle, and the white candle represents peace, and the flame is grandfather fire. And you can literally let that candle go to it every day and just send love, just send peace and send love. But also you can write down every day that you want to let go. So grandfather fire transmutes anything that we're feeling, mental health issues, stickiness, sickness. And so write down anything that you're wanting to let go of. And in this case with the heartbreak, is like, I want to let go of the pain. I want to find peace. I want to let go of the pain in my heart, my body, my soul. And you just every day keep going to the fire, keep going to the fire. And when it's your mum that we lose, or a grandma, or a female figure, particularly mum and grandma, or say like an auntie that was your mum, you need to go to the earth to Pachamama, because you need to understand that you had a human mummy, but you also have an earth mother, and that earth mother is Mother Earth, and Mother Earth can mother you. You can feel the love of a mother from Mother Earth, but so is cacao. Cacao is, some say mama, but mama seems, because I traveled around Latin and South America for 5 months last year training with the curanderos and shamans, but mama cacao seems to be a Western term. They all call her abuela, because the tree, grandma, because the trees are like years old and she's so wise.
Yeah.
If you want to feel the love of a mother in that grieving process, you can drink cacao and ask the spirit of cacao. Because remember, in shamanism, and to people like myself, there is no difference between you and that spirit. I love them just as much, and I communicate with them just as much as I would a normal human being. And so that love can be wrapped around and given to you. So you need to find the replacement love. How can you move forward with the love that you're missing? But you also need to get all of those emotions out, and grief sits in the lungs. So if you're grieving and you haven't dealt with it, you might have slow breathing, you might have asthma, which you never did, COPD, You might have spots on your cheeks here because that represents the lungs. The lungs equal grief. Shallow breathing. Yeah, just like you won't be breathing in life. Life is prana. So you won't be living life to your full capacity because of the
Yeah.
grief.
Yeah, I definitely, when I did a ceremony because my dad passed, and as you said, I like held on to, and not consciously, because like he wasn't in my life, but it was like prior to his death, but it was like I was holding on to this, like, oh, he didn't love me. Then when I did a ceremony, the first thing that was coming to me was, I'm always here. And it came through the wind. And like now the amount of peace I felt, and that's when actually the whole shift in my relationship started to happen, and the really being okay with just being with myself and not trying to fill that void with other people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's
That's no matter where we are or our race or culture, there was always rituals and ceremony and practices that we had to honor the dead.
Yeah.
And to give them time. Like honoring your ancestors is the most important shamanic work. It is the most important to work and honor your ancestors.
Yeah.
To have like, so if you, is it Abby? If you even have like a picture of your mum, like create an altar and have a picture of her or pictures of her with just her or you and her, and you can give offerings of flowers, and they feel that in the spirit realm, because in the spirit realm, they're not in a physical body anymore, so they can't taste honey or smell flowers. So if you present it here on the altar, they get to experience it, and it makes them very happy, and that they bless you. And it's not that you do that for the blessing and like, oh, if I give some honey, oh, I'll get a blessing.
Yeah.
But you do it like honor. You do it to honor them and say thank you for their life, and in that exchange of what they've given you, which is life in a parent context. So yeah, it's very important work. It's very, very important work for ancestors. I've been doing that recently. My whole world has changed.
Yeah. I because I'm a Buddhist, I have an altar, and so I just when I pray on a day, well, when I chant on a daily, my dad, my mum, we pray for the dead, our ancestors, like in that space, those who've passed over. Like you said, it's like honoring that space and allowing them to pass over with these. Oh, it is very important. No, I was just responded. I was doing two things then. It is very important. Yeah. Does anybody else? Oh, she's a Buddhist. I am a Buddhist. I'm sure I met you. I'm sure I met him at my house. I'm sure I met you at my house. I'm sure you came to my house after Danielle's birthday. Sure. But I digress. I wonder if there's anybody else that wants any questions answered. Oh, no. Well, at least we got back on and was able to.
You said
I did come. I'm not thinking. I'm sure you came to my house. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
But I think the key thing is like dating after heartbreak. It's like give yourself time to get back to center, figure out who you are, away from those emotions, away from the cords and the attachments to that person to you, because you you end up copying each other, don't you? Like when you're with someone, copying what they say, copying what they're eating, copying until you kind of morph into one if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So that attachment release and figuring out who you are is really important, so that you don't just jump in and repeat those same patterns and actually bring energy of the past relationship into the new one.
Yeah, which happens a lot, and like trying to undo elements that you've taken on from a past relationship. That's a whole Netflix series.
It is. Darius would be good on that Netflix series. It's a real topic, dating after heartbreak, because how do you do it? So for example, sorry to interrupt you because I'm like in the flow now, but it's like dating after heartbreak, you can close your heart. So sometimes we're afraid and we just go close.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that that because I got hurt last time.
Yeah.
And so if that
Yeah.
happens to your heart, where you were dating and you were hurt and now you have a broken heart and you're like, not going to date. So actually what's best to do is to go and seek healing, whatever that may look like, you know, and heal your broken heart. Because what you don't want to do is have that fear. Fear is a very low vibrational being, almost demonic, actually.
It is. It ruins people's lives. Like you can, like I can feel when somebody's acting from a place of fear without them even saying it. Like after, like, yeah, I am actually like, as soon as I see somebody acting from fear, and I can see that all their actions, even the way that they speak, it's basically a waste of time if you ain't going in it to a date broke.
Yeah, like broken.
Oh, right, yeah. I thought you meant money. I was like, well, for a guy, yeah. I thought we were going down that route. I was like, well, yeah. No, 100%. It is a waste of time. And that's why, for me, where I've got to now, it's like, unless it's intentional and purposeful, I ain't doing it. Like, what's the point? I'm not willing to go backwards. So unless I see that somebody is in a space that we can both move forward together, I get that. What do you mean, guy? Yeah, guys have. Well, if a guy's broke, he could be dating. 100%. Let's not go down this road. He'll be called a misogynist.
he'll have you up. He's good with that.
I'm not a feminist. I believe in roles. I believe in that. There's spaces. It icks me if a guy wants me to pay on a first date, and we're never gonna date. That's just point blank. Like, it's just not happening. Like, well, where we go, like, it's not. Get away with it. I got made to pay half of the date once, and I was literally traumatized. It wasn't that I can't pay, and it wasn't that I didn't want to pay. It was that you expect me to pay. Like, how are you gonna? Junior's known me since I was like 18. He's laughing. He's literally known me since I was 18 years old. Like, they're like, oh, I want to come and be the protector and the provider, but yet you want me to pay half of the bill. You want to lead me, but you want me to pay half of the bill. Like, at what point are you going to be cooking half of the meal when we're at home? Are you going to be doing half of the nappy? Are you going to do half the cleaning? Like, and at that point, it's then like, we're just housemates. We're just housemates. Like, what's the point? To me, we're just housemates. Yeah. Like, I don't want to do a man's role. I don't want to do it. I've been doing it. What do you think when roles change in non-binary? Well, I can only speak from a space in which I reside, and I am a woman and I date men. And so for me, I can't pass judgment or tell somebody else how they should live their life. I just know what's right for me and what works for me and what my soul and my being knows feels good for me. And that is how that is been, because I've been in relationships where I am in my masculine, where I'm leading.
That's the thing,
and it
is from a
feels uncomfortable.
It's like maybe there's a boundary or an agreement that person has within themselves what they like. You know, like maybe I don't mind, or maybe I do mind if they're in non-binary relationships. But I would definitely say in the energetics, from a spiritual context, as a woman, not just in the traditional sense of what a woman's role is, if we looked at it from that, and a man's role is, but when a woman can't be her feminine self, the masculine will step in. And then how can a man receive the divinity, very key word, the divinity of the sacred feminine, if she's having to do with the masculine? And like for me, I kind of a guy from that first meal, paying and not paying, but thereafter, like moving forward in time, like, yeah, I'll pay half, I'll buy you dinner, it's not a problem.
Yeah,
like,
but that first initial,
just like opening the door. And that was the thing, like when I met this guy, like I opened the door and I was like, oh god, it's been a while.
Like, I just stand there literally, like, I'm like, I will, like, even if, because as much as my past relationship didn't work, one thing he did teach me, he was quite a bit older than me, one thing he did teach me was that, like, all of these little things, like, there's never been a moment where he's been like, yo, you can like anything at all, like in that space. But then when it comes to nurturing and stuff, that was just natural for me. It just flowed into that space. There was never a moment where I felt like I had to like take the lead in those kind of elements of the relationship. So like even him walking on the outside of me, like he would automatically, if we were on a road,
Yeah.
it would just be a natural thing for him to walk on the outside of me. Would I date a trans man? No. I mean, no. I just like I trans man that no, I like penis. Like, but I mean, unless they, like,
I can't a woman who's had a
but they have to put it up themselves. I think is like it's for me. I like no. I just don't know where to go with that one. My brain, like no, like I mean. I would more likely be a lesbian before I would date a trans man. Like I would just go for the divine feminine energy and have that element that's just. But then I know that if I was in, what if they have a trans man has a penis? Well, yeah, but is it? They're still biologically a woman. Like for me, it's like we can't. The identity is one thing, but biology is another. So if at the end of the like for me in terms of energetically should like you were talking about the divine feminine, divine mass, like that can't be changed with operations and identity.
Dirish, I would say, is very, very knowledgeable in the non-binary arena. I respect a lot what he says because he's got a lot of friends and he's in that world where he communicates, and I think it's important to value people like Dirish's wisdom because he understands what trans and non-binary people energy is like.
Yeah.
The thing is though, that's a fair point. Like, is that an issue if they don't hold the divine masculine? It would be an issue because for someone like I can maybe speak for yourself, correct me if I'm wrong, which is we are looking for that divine masculine energy. We're looking for the polarity of here's the divine, the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
We're looking for that. And so if that person hasn't got it, then you might as well be a lesbian, in my opinion.
That's
right?
What I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
And it's not about alpha beta men. I'm
No.
not talking about, it's just like that energy that runs through the man of that masculine essence. And I'm talking about unhealthy or healthy, just the essence of the masculine man. And what happens if they held that? I don't know, because it's like I've never met one. I've never
been in that space.
Yeah, and nor have I. So, you know, I would rather date a man who has been born a man from birth. That would be a preference. Yeah, I would just say that would be my preference.
Yeah, and that's what I would say. Like, do you want to come up? Does he want to come up? Like, would you like to come up? Because
yes, two-spirit is in the North American indigenous terms. It's the two spirits. This is like going way off from like saying the heartbreak. I'm going to answer this and then we're going to stop it because I'm not going to do that. Yeah, they hold two energies. So two spirits are the North American indigenous terms of where if you're gay, lesbian, or bi, or a trans person, you're actually extremely valued as part of the community. You're seen as a blessing. Yes. So you're seen as a blessing in the community, and actually they would be the one to do some of the most sacred spiritual acts or within that ceremony would be the two spirit. Whereas the Western term is like, oh, they're broken, or you know, and even
broken.
Where things are going, I don't even have fucking words for.
Like, I mean, like, yeah.
I don't have words for where the
world
trend.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I'm
like,
for me, I don't one, I'm not knowledgeable enough in that space. Two, I just know what's aligned for me and in me and what my preference is. Even I got called racist the other day because my preference are black men. Like, what?
Yeah,
like,
why is that so? Like, why do people get like if you like a white guy with blue eyes or a white woman, like, why is that so wrong? Like, it's just your
Well, it was because I was on a panel with a white supremacist, but I didn't know that he was a white supremacist at the time.
Wow.
I didn't know that he was a white supremacist. He didn't call me racist, but everyone else was calling him racist for having the same opinion as me. And then everybody else was like, well, why is Naomi not racist? Because she only wants black men.
Yeah. Well,
and then, so the hypocrisy in that was like...
I will share this, though, which was really fascinating. So the place that I stayed at in Peru, like the retreat center, it's not really a retreat center, but not like the ones that we think in the West, but it's where I worked with ayahuasca and other jungle medicines. The lady who runs it, she held a group of trans and non-binary and all the, I don't even know the words. That's what I mean. I don't know the terminologies, but in that, you know, trans people and non-binary people, but particularly a group of trans people went to Peru to drink ayahuasca. And in the Shipibo indigenous people, they see your soul. So if you look like a man and your soul is a woman, that it confused them. So the English speaking shaman was trying to explain to the Shipibo shaman, like, they're going to be this group and they dress like a man or a woman, but they were born the opposite. And she couldn't get her head around it because they don't have that in the tribes. They don't do that. So if you're a two-spirit, you're a two-spirit, you know.
Called a two-spirit.
Yeah, you're a two-spirit. You're not all not all indigenous.
So you don't change your identity.
No,
you identify as I'm a woman, but I have two-spirit.
Yeah, so I like to dress as a man, but there's no sex change option.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, under that option. So it was very hard, and actually out of that time together, because I was like, I'd love to be on a fly in the wall, because I know personally women who've become lesbians because of being sexually abused. And I know men who have been gay or are gay because of being raped by men or being abused by a woman, you know, like the auntie, the family friend who's made them suck their, you know, gone down on her from a very small age, right? And so I personally have witnessed in my lifetime that choosing the same sex to be in a relationship is not always a sovereign decision. It doesn't come from a sovereign place. It comes from a wound of, I don't trust men, so I'm now going to be with women. So you got so traumatized, you have so much pain that you don't trust men now, but you still want to be loved and have orgasms and have sex and build a life, that you are changing your sexual preference because of the trauma. That's not a sovereign decision. So in that retreat, in that dieta, because it's called a dieta, which is 1 month, minimum 1 month long, one of the people realized through going through the ayahuasca journeys that they became trans because of the trauma. But luckily they didn't have that final operation with their...
There's a lot of trans community coming out on the other social media platform and saying that it was a mistake, that they caught me at a young, confused age. And because my parents went along with it, they've had hormone blockers and all of these things that have completely ruined their bodies because they weren't old enough to make that decision. That's where I'm like, for me, like, if you're a child, you're a child. Let them be a child. When they're an adult, they can make that decision. I don't think that at a young age, parents should be allowed to make that decision for them, to start giving them hormone blockers, because
like my sons, all of them, they all, because I was a beauty therapist and I had all the equipment and stuff at home, and they were, even though I was in relationship, they were really raised by a woman, like a single mum. And so they would get my makeup and put it on their cheeks. They would paint nails. They would do like girly things. Yeah, it's just part of growing up. Like, you want to be like daddy and you want to be like mum. And you just let them be. But there's no like, oh my God, does that mean like they want to be a woman now? You know, just let them be and let them work, you know, play with that. But I also think, like, my little boy, some of the family on his dad's side was like, oh, you don't give him a cooker, because all the kids had like cookers and like mini hoovers and that, or a buggy with a baby. Yeah, like a little buggy with a little brown baby in it. And like, oh, don't give him that, he's a boy, boys don't have that. And I'm like, what? So what, a man doesn't push a buggy?
I was going to say that, then you get boys like, I'm not pushing the buggy, it's not a manly thing, you best push your kid. Somebody asked, do you believe love is love? Of course, love is love is love, but then we have our preferences.
Sorry, say that again. I was like trying to read.
No, he said, he asked, do you believe love is love? And I was just going back to the first question, and then I'm going to go down to the next one that somebody.
Love.
No, do you believe love is love? Like, well, of course, love is love. You can love on so many different spaces, but
what does that mean?
Love isn't a preference. I don't think love is a preference. I think love is
ask provocative questions.
Yeah, I like it. I've been on enough podcasts with provocative question asking that this
is good like that.
Yeah. Well, of course.
For me, love is a verb.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not a preference. Like, I wouldn't call it a preference. Like, I don't have a preference. Like, if I met somebody and that innate feeling of love, and they happen to be a trans man, because I wouldn't know, would I, at first? Like, maybe I might not know.
Yeah, that's the thing, and you don't know until you're in that situation.
I've never
personally, because I've like gone into my head like, oh fuck men, maybe I'll just be a lesbian, and I'm like, but I like Willie.
I know. I've had the same thoughts at some points, and then I'm like, and then I see like a tall black man that's just so beautiful. And I'm like, it's just not gonna happen. Sorry, girls. Sorry, women.
Like, women work very well together. Good, you know, not all women, because not all women are, you know, perfect or amazing, just like men. But women can function really well in households. They really get shit done.
Yeah.
And caring and nurturing. Like there's, I remember watching a documentary once, and there's a community of elderly women. When the husband dies, they all invest into this big house, beautiful glass floors, out in like the nature, like stunning. And so they invest, and when the husbands die, they all go and live in this house, and they all just look after each other. And it's like phenomenal, because they're all taken care of. They're doing arts and crafts, and
somebody said what you're saying is really deep. What it illustrates is how artificial Western society has become in comparison to traditional societies. Even certain other people who are on social media that are seen as like really controversial, that's what they're saying in essence. If you go back, if you strip away all the fajaz that they're saying that like the Western one is fucked. Like, they're pushing all these agendas and pushing all these things, and because it's without a deep religion or spiritual practice that is practiced at its purest form, we've just got a lot of lost people doing things that because they want to feed, I don't even know what. But
the thing is, though, is that all across all time and space on Earth, you know, same-sex relationships have been going on for years. Trans has been going on for eons. It's not anything new, but it's the agenda behind it now to demasculate man, to demasculate and to infiltrate and to harm children. That's the real issue. That, you know, if you feel, and also from a shamanic point of view, this is deep actually. From a shamanic point of view, when you incarnate, there could be times when you say a man, and then you incarnate and you're a woman, and you're just like, I'm not a woman, I'm a man. So you've got all these past life memories, even as a child, of being a man or a boy. And so you don't know this feminine body, or you've been a man so many times that like, no, I'm going to be a woman. But then you come back as a man and you're like, no, fuck this. I said to you, God, God, an angel, I'm coming back as a you know, a girl or a female, and it didn't happen. So from a shamanic incarnation point of view, I personally also feel that there's a lot of souls that are incarnating, and they're just kind of like rebelling against their sacred contracts.
Like, fuck this, I don't want this vagina no more.
And or say from another point of view, because it's always good to look at the different perspectives, agenda, you know, demasculating men, which means then suppressing the female, the woman, but also how some children remember their past lives, right? And so they keep talking about, I'm a little girl, and I'm a little girl, and they were a boy.
Yeah.
Or it could be a soul possession, when a soul steps into that human body, right? And then that possession of that lower being is telling them they're not that sex. Remember, we're at a point of the Great Awakening, and
Yeah.
influx of lower vibrational. In shamanism, we don't say good or bad, and we don't say dark or light. We say higher and lower. But everything under the umbrella of Great Spirit is good. It just is.
Yeah.
And so in this Great Awakening, everything that is of the dark is going to come for it. Yeah. It's going to come to suppress the light.
Oh,
It's going to come to suppress the light.
Yeah.
So if you're going through a spiritual awakening, before you crack through, you're going to go through a bout of depression. You're going to feel suppressed. You're going to feel anxious. You're going to feel suicidal even. You're going to go through all these really strong, intense emotions, because it's like you need to break through that. Can you break through that? The lower beings don't want you to. But in another way is that there's medicine in it, because the dark always leads you to the light.
Don't I know that one? So would I say that I wouldn't date a trans man? I wouldn't consciously go and make a conscious decision to. But if I fell in love, but wouldn't they tell me? Actually, here's the thing, because if they haven't told me that they're trans and I've got to the point of falling in love with them and they didn't tell me, then at that point the relationship would be over anyway.
Bye. See you.
Because you've lied to me. So it's then like, would I, if they met me and they were like, hey, I'm trans, I wouldn't pursue it potentially. No, I wouldn't. And so yeah, if they had lied, if they hadn't told me and I'm falling in love with them, that would be like, I would be so angry. I'd be so upset.
Yeah, because it's deceit.
That's not why I asked you. You just said you wouldn't know and you'd fall in love, so you would say then that you wouldn't date a trans man. But how would I not know? If they're trans, then surely they should tell me from the beginning. Like I feel that should be something that should be discussed from the beginning now. That's just the type of relationships that I want to enter into, that are honest, open, and communicative. And so young souls that did not transition properly to the
acquired gender. Yeah, there's a lot of that can happen. That soul just needs support. And again, remembering that in the tribes and the community, there are so many daily rituals and weekly rituals and ceremonies that take place that support the soul. So for example, like soul retrieval, a song would be sung to that child every day after it goes out, because when you lose a piece of your soul, you lose a piece of yourself and you're not whole anymore.
No, it's not that it has to be how you introduce yourself, but if we're going to be intimate, I think that if you've changed, like I tell people things about my past that could potentially be a deal breaker for them.
Like having children.
It's just a reality that people have their preferences. So if for me, like I'm entering and I'm going on a date with somebody, I'm like, I've got children, I've got certain things in my past that X, Y, and Z, just because it's best to be honest and lead with honesty. And so if and also on a flip side, if you're trans and you are then entering into a relationship, you're going to have a whole past life that you're then not going to discuss with me, because you were but I wouldn't feel the love on a first date. Like, I mean, I haven't up to now. Like, I haven't been on a first date and been like, I love this person. Like, I'm quite a pragmatic person when it comes to dating. I'm in Taurus, so like I'm very much black and white. Like, there's not like I don't get like all delusional about it.
Sun in Taurus. Is your sun in Taurus?
No. My Venus.
Oh.
My Venus is in Taurus and my rising's in Taurus. Dates, not date. I mean, I would feel that it would be a conversation. Like, if it's not a conversation, then we're not gonna like. And then I find out, like, somebody else tells me,
but
like,
maybe from the person who's trans, they need time to open up.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, my point is that I would hope that it would be a conversation before I get to loving them.
Yeah.
Like, love isn't just going to transpire overnight.
Well,
so
love needs friends like honesty and trust and boundaries. Love is not enough on its own.
Right.
Doesn't work. And so if you're not truthful at the beginning, and I had a guy do that, who said he had like certain amount of children, and then he added one more like a month or 6 weeks later, and I'm like, why lie? And
What did that one
yeah,
make a
because
difference? You've already got kids.
he was ashamed. He was providing for that child, so he was ashamed. But then I was just like, well, what other weird things have you got up your sleeve? And so it was always lingering, that distrust there. So there are certain things that you have to communicate at the beginning, but also I would say, if like on a first date, maybe you don't share that on a first date, because you as the person who's trans or got the heavy weight of something big on them, you don't know if you want to be with that person. Even kids,
yeah, of
so
course.
just like, let me just give it a couple more dates and then see if I
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah. Yeah, a couple of dates, but I mean, we went straight to love. We're in love. We love now, so like you're now stuck there. Like obviously, if I love somebody, then I would then be hurt that they didn't tell me.
Yeah.
But if it's just a couple of dates, like I wouldn't dismiss. Like obviously, I wouldn't dismiss this person, but I know that that moment they tell me that they're trans, I know what I'm like I know what I'm like. Shit, somebody can't, I can go on a date with somebody and then not pay half and it be a deal, and it completely change how I feel about that space. So I mean, if you were not strangers first, well surely I would not like, surely I would not like, if we're not strangers, why wouldn't you tell? Why, if we're like friends, why wouldn't I, like me and my friends, like I would hope that I have a in my friendships that I have now, I know that it fosters a safe space to communicate. And so again, if my mate, you're my friend and you're trying to get it in, one, two, you then trying to, then you didn't tell me, like either way it's dishonest for me. Like for me, if you haven't told me and we're now in an intimate situation, we're getting actually there was a trans woman talking about, what's that rapper's name? Oh, forgotten his name, some rapper. Love is love, right, as you said. So you can't help who you love. And if you develop love, what are you going to do? Well, I mean, I love many people and I'm not in a relationship with them. I love my son's father. I'm not in a relationship with him. I love my ex. I'm not in a relationship with him. Like, you can love and not be in a relationship.
Yeah.
Like, I think that
love and communication are the glue. Yeah. It's so important because it's like honesty, like I was saying, trust and boundaries. And, you know, maybe that's also sometimes why people go through heartbreak, you know, because they don't have that communication, they don't have that trust.
well, 100%.
And give the heartbreak is like, why didn't he just tell me? Why didn't she just tell me?
Yeah.
You know, why didn't we talk about this earlier? Why didn't you let me know that you were feeling this way rather than drag it out all this time?
When it comes to intimacy of love with someone who happens to be trans, I don't understand. But either way, that's not where I'm going. So I mean, I know that that's not where I'm going to end up. Or why didn't they? What? I don't understand. But also, I'm sure they were like, no, that's not binary. My son actually came up to me the other day. He was like, he games and there's somebody who's not binary. He was like, what is that? He was like so confused. He was like, I tried my best to explain, because we're now in this space. But
the thing also from like there's a gender I definitely feel with what's going on behind, more deeply in America, but also in schools in the UK, of like imposing, because it does feel like, because it starts from so young as like 4 and 5 in the schools, of imposing the non-binary and the trans agenda onto the children. Because again, why can't you just let children get older and then talk about sex and let them explore and be, and then get into more detail when they're more grown up, because they're so young. They need to retain their innocence, children, from a context as well. But what I do feel, because I've struggled a lot with the non-binary and trans arena. I don't even know all the words, because I get overwhelmed and I'm just like, mine's not even that. Can we stick to that? Because I just can't handle it. And that's ignorant of me, and I have to put my hands up to that. But what I do feel also is that there are souls incarnating, star seeds that are incarnating on the earth plane that don't resonate with gender. So they're asexual, they don't resonate with men or women. And actually, look back at the history of earth from Egyptian to Atlantean to Lemurian, so it goes in that order: Egyptian, Atlantean, Lemurian. We were in the beginning of time of creation. There's many ancient texts about this, where the souls were one, like we were just a soul, like blobbing around doing our thing on earth. This is like way back in the day. And from where it's in a book called Sacred Sexual Union, and it's the root of all wounds. And so we were a soul that the Great Spirit created, and over eons of time, within that soul, part of the soul wanted to go and explore and have an adventure. And the other part of the soul was like, why? We're perfect. Why do you want to go? Why do you want to leave? Everything's fine. And that desire to go and explore was so strong that it separated the souls and then manifested into a man and a woman. And the part of the soul that wanted to go off and have an adventure was the masculine. The one that felt abandoned and rejected was the feminine. And when you think about that, if the man's even going down the pub or playing golf, oh babe, why are you going to come back?
Yeah.
You know, there's the abandonment and rejection, and it stems from that. But originally we were a soul without sex, like with sexual like organs, so to speak. We had none of that way. And so this remembering, this reawakening within of souls that don't resonate with being a boy or a girl, they are just a soul. And why can't you see me as a soul? Why do you have to put sex, a sexual connotation over me? Why do you have to do that? It can be looked at from the Lemurian times, but it can also be looked at is that they're intergalactic beings from other planets that come from planets that don't resonate with being a specific sex. And I genuinely, I can see that happening in these really young generations. Because also, if we look at our grandparents and our parents and what was normal and what they did in their day and how much we evolved, not from tech, but from our mindset, right? And young children are evolving in their mindset and in their awareness. It's profound.
Yeah.
So they are. So I definitely think there's a gender, but I definitely think there are souls that are incarnating that don't resonate with a particular boy or girl sex.
My thing is that I am acceptant, and they want to create a space of acceptance, but in that they're telling us what we should be called. Now I'm a cis woman. Like, what? like how can we be creating all of these other pronouns and all of these other sex things in order to make other people feel accepted, but then telling us what we should be called? Like, I don't like when anyone calls me a cis woman, I just ignore it. I'm like, you can't tell me. You know what I'm like about labels? When someone calls me a baby mom, I'm like, oh, label. Yeah, and so that for me is the part where I disconnect from that space where like you're then telling me what I should be.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, but you know, like again, it's just in the Western world. They don't have that in these other parts of the world.
no.
There's none of this going on. It just doesn't exist.
Wild. Yeah.
If you get a guy who's camp wearing like batty riders in Latin South America or the Caribbean, he's a guy with a little belly top and batty riders. He's just that guy.
Yeah.
He's just that guy. He's just that
guy. Exactly.
That guy. And that's as simple as that. There's no stress and projections and agendas.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. That there's agenda
going
on the bigger.
Yeah, 100%. And when they're pushing it on children, that's when I'm like, no, not my child for sure. But yeah.
Mad. That's mad. Okay, so is there anything else? Because
it's coming to the next hour now. So yeah, like in cells in biology, starting as one and breaking naturally. He's that guy is heteronormal.
See, he knows all the terms. I don't know what all the terminology is. He's so good. Like,
Yeah, it's like my brain just goes like I mean like in
Yeah. My brain goes like I do not compute because I'm just like, oh, it's a lot. And so the lady who was holding the retreat, or the shaman in Peru, she went and studied all the terminologies and the names so that she could understand what they were saying. She goes, it was so fucking hard. It was so hard to like, yeah, just learn all
like
this. And
learning
then,
a new
yeah,
language.
yeah, she said it was really, she tried as well. Well, she not just tried, she did it. But yeah, there was only one that came out of that, realizing that they made a mistake, or realized not a mistake, but realized that the decision to change gender was because of trauma.
Yeah.
The big thing, the very
Mm.
big.
Well, yeah,
Oh.
it's it's a it's a whole because you also have to have like when communicating about it, you also have to have a level of understanding and compassion for that space. But at the same time, for me, I'm not going to be told what I am, like, or what I should want or shouldn't want. Language is evolving on a daily basis, 100%. But then when it's like an influx of change of language, like sometimes it takes people to catch up with learning all of these new, and it's like with slang terms as well. I'm not going to keep like learning all these different terms. Well, I mean, I guess if it was a space in which I resided in on a daily basis, then I would make the conscious effort to put myself in that space to learn those things. But it's not my reality in where I like in what I do on a daily basis. Obviously, if I was going to hold space or a conversation with somebody, I would dive into
That was imposed, that new terminology during COVID. That was
what new terminology?
like
What
living
huh?
and the language and the way we were living.
I've still worked all throughout COVID, so nothing got imposed on me. Like literally, I worked throughout the whole of COVID. I mean, nothing got imposed on me except except I maybe cycled more. 100% music and art evolves and influences the world and how we speak. That's what the government uses.
Behind the music.
Yeah, exactly. The agenda, even with rap music, with all like with WAP, all to over sexualize girls, and like, there's still an agenda.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's like
I mean, me as a medicine woman, I put that all in the fire and burn it.
I don't listen to my daughter's always like, what? Yeah, I said you need to listen to music like I listen to. She's like, it's always so happy. Always so happy. Like listening to Sam Garrett. Like I'm not like because I understand
mad.
what I consume like is important. So
Yeah.
I mean,
That's because that's all programming. That's the point. During the COVID times, it was all programming. We were being programmed to live a certain way. We get programmed by music, and it's so smart because they're catchy lyrics. They're catchy, it's just like catchy. Whereas
and they use different. Kanye was talking about it, using different frequencies in order to lower your vibrational frequency.
do that, and that's what I mean. There's an agenda behind all of that, and that's why you have to be a complete rebellious person and have complete inner anarchy, not external, inner, meaning no, not doing that, no, not eating that, no, not watching that. Just it has to be you, because that breakthrough of being a free sovereign being is what we're all trying to aspire to on some deep level, but unconsciously. And not will all break through it in this incarnation. It might not be part of their soul contract. Wake up in this life to the freedom, to the divine connection, to the one, and that what we are is infinite beings of everlasting existence, and that has to be honored. So I don't know, but for me, like, of course, words are spells. The English language is the most fucked up language of all of them. Just like when you look at Persian and just beautiful languages across the world, like they'll have phrases that mean something so beautiful. The English, you can't translate it. And so the language is so fucked because it is to cast spells from the draconian times, it's from the Roman times. It's to cast a spell upon that person. And if you look at African people, they only speak highly of each other. Even look at the name Precious, Hope. They speak well of each other. They don't do this like talking bullshit about each other. And also in shamanism, when you speak poorly of someone, it's called a poison arrow. So we get trained to pull back those poisoned arrows, or speak poorly of someone, to take them back, because it's bad karma.
Yeah.
It's bad for myself, let alone the person, and then bad for the collective consciousness.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, we were born into this language, so I mean, unless we just stop speaking.
Light language.
No, like literally, like this.
MK Ultra and the Rainbow Agenda. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I bought some skates with the rainbow on, and everyone was like, "Are you gay?" I'm like, "It's a rainbow. The rainbow."
You know where that comes from?
Here before
The rainbow. The rainbow colors. There's two more. I think it's two more, because I have it. I have a photo. It's from Peru, but it's from Peru. It's from a tribe. It's one of the most ancient tribes on earth. They took that rainbow from one of the most ancient tribes on earth, from the Incas in Peru, the Andes.
It's like yeah. So when I got my skates, I was offended. I was like, rainbows existed before, so I'm not getting rainbows on my skates, because
back in the 80s, you just would have had rainbow. That wouldn't have meant anything back in the 80s. You would have just had a rainbow t-shirt or rainbow skates, and it's just like, oh, rainbow, and now it's like, oh, anything to do with rainbow. Is she bi? Is she gay? Is she this?
I'm like, no, just like rainbows. Well, yeah, I still got the skates. I'm wearing my skates tomorrow to a roller disco, and I'm gonna wear them. And I can't even say with pride, but I'm gonna wear them. I'm gonna wear them.
Wear them.
I'm gonna. Yes, it's a tradition. That's what I'm gonna tell people. Yeah, it's a traditional indigenous flag. Thank you very much.
You're missing two colours off it though, just so you know.
Well, I mean, I might paint the two colours on then.
That's where we have to remember that everything that is of the light and sacred has somehow in the modern world been twisted and turned into its, used in not in a good way. And the rainbow has been done that.
Wear it with pride. I know, I can't even say that. I'm going to wear it with pride.
Yeah.
It's been an amazing conversation. It's been beautiful. I'm going to put it out on my YouTube, and I will then send it over to you as well.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Take care. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the great questions.
Bye, dearish.
Bye.